Hello and welcome back to S.E.L.F, S.E.L. for faculty for the adults in the building. And today I want to talk about self-care. And I noticed, first, let me tell you a funny story, because you probably, if you're watching on YouTube, you see these little ears popping up. Normally I record this in my office space, but I got some feedback about my virtual background. So I moved. Well, my dog usually sits in my lap all day while I am working on the computer, sits in my lap. So in this new space, she can't really do that. So I had to stop recording and make a little setup for her and then try this again. Okay, so she insists on self-care. She's very good at boundaries and advocating for herself. There's a lot we could learn there. But today we're going to talk about self-care and how self-care is not SEL. So first I want to talk about self-care and acknowledge the importance of self-care. I noticed, especially like when during COVID times, I think I'm allowed to say that now, but especially during COVID times and even a little bit before, there were like meetings being held at schools, right? To emphasize to teachers to have self-care, to make sure they take care of themselves. And then I noticed kind of like, not retaliation, but like a reaction to that from teachers, like, oh, another thing to add to my list, like check the box, make sure I do self-care. Just so you know, self-care within that energy is not going to do much for you. But I look at self-care as something that's kind of momentary unless it's consistent. For example, I got a massage recently. I'm not really a massage person, but my mom got it for me and it feels really great in the moment. And even like a little after, I feel very relaxed, right? My muscles feel relaxed, but it doesn't last. I can tell you right now, there's nothing like that's left over like from that massage that I had. So it's very in the moment. And something like that does communicate to myself, to my mind, to my body that I value it. So there is so much value in self-care beyond just the relaxation and rejuvenation. And that's really what self-care is about, relaxation and rejuvenation. I even look at, for example, taking your vitamins as self-care, right? Again, taking your vitamins once isn't really going to do anything. It needs to be consistent, right? And self-care is all about that, relax and rejuvenate. I look at self-care as kind of part of the foundation of SEL. Self-care can support SEL. For example, sleep. If you remember sleep from a previous podcast, one of my 5 foundations of SEL. If you get enough sleep, one, that is self-care numero uno. There's even research that says if you have to choose between sleep and exercise, and what's better for your health is sleep every time. What? So getting up at 5, if it's going to reduce your sleep, then that is not the choice to make. Interesting, right? That's how important sleep is. You will hear me say that like all the time. But getting enough sleep is self-care. And it drastically supports our SEL journey. We can't do the work. And there's the word, and there's the difference, is SEL is work. Now, it's not hard work, and it's not all another task you need to add. And it is work. There is engagement involved in SEL. So I am not discounting self-care. In fact, I think it is imperative for a good, solid SEL journey. And self-care is not SEL. We also don't really need trainings on self-care. We know how to take care of ourselves, and our body communicates that to us. Now, self-awareness can really help our self-care journey. But I don't need a training on getting massages or like making sure I get enough sleep. Although there are tips and stuff that can help you make sure you get enough sleep, because insomnia is like an epidemic for some reason. Bubble baths, right? Taking that time out to treat myself, I don't really need a training for. On the other hand, SEL, or our social emotional work, trainings can be very beneficial because it's not something that comes instinctually or naturally. And it may have, like, I think about kids. I think it comes way more naturally to kids. I think it's been trained out of us. It has been trained out of us to follow our own instincts and nature. And I think that's a huge part of SEL. You know, the first like standard in SEL, according to Castle, is self-awareness. And that is huge. And again, can help support self-care. But when we are aware, right, this takes effort at first. And I think that's a good thing to think about SEL too, is a lot of it takes effort at first until we make it a habit, until we make it a habit to do it. So SEL, our social emotional work, takes a lot more intention. Oh, I like that better. Yes. SEL takes intention, whereas self-care doesn't really take as much intention. We need to make sure we do it, but I don't really need to come with an intention behind it. So when we're doing SEL work, it's really good and important to realize why we are doing it, what we are learning from it. I think a lot of SEL is about changing our beingness, right? Of how we do things and the habits that we have, how we react to things. And the reason why it starts with self-awareness is because first we have to realize, how are we reacting to things? How do we do things? What are our habits that support the life we want? And what are our habits that don't? Self-awareness is a really important first step. This, again, at first takes some time and effort and intention. Self-awareness, you can think of a lot like mindfulness, fits really nicely into self-awareness. Meditation. Meditation is what I use to cultivate a habit of self-awareness. It helps me realize throughout the day the pauses that are important. And it starts my day off with a connection to myself, versus starting my day off with a connection to others, such as social media or the news. When I start my day off with a connection to myself, then I carry that habit throughout the day. It's more likely that I will. And again, in the beginning, just like any habit, this takes intention. That's why I have a timer that goes off on my phone, or it's just like a ding that goes off on my phone every hour. And depending on where I'm at in my journey, that will remind me of certain things. At one point, it reminded me just to breathe, just to take a darn breath, right? And now it reminds me to think about, what am I doing? Is the activity that I am doing in this moment supportive of what I want to accomplish and who I want to be? So, and it takes work. Let's talk about journaling. Journaling can be self-care in a way, I think, but journaling really is a part of an SEL journey that can help you reflect. And a lot of times when we're journaling, if we can get into that mindfulness space, or almost like a meditation space, you'll be so shocked at what comes out. And you'll be journaling, and you'll go and you'll read it back, and you'll be like, I wrote that? Really? Self-care is not going to change your beingness, whereas SEL can. So self-care might change your momentary emotions and feelings, but SEL can make huge and dramatic shifts. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to record this podcast, because just for schools, just handing out like massages, like that's nice and thoughtful, but it's not going to affect teacher burnout and teacher retention. It could improve culture a little bit, but again, it's not going to affect the beingness of a teacher. It's not going to affect their ability to be able to handle stress and see things differently from a different perspective. Now, in that same vein, another thing that self-care and SEL can do is change your relationships, how you interact with people and how they interact with you. So self-care, again, like I said before, can change your momentary emotions, right? So if I have taken the time to do self-care and my daughter comes home and is complaining, I'm going to deal with that much differently than if she is coming home complaining and I have not taken the time, I've just rushed around all day, and she comes home and is part of that action, right? It's going to be a different interaction in that moment. Now, SEL can shift my entire relationship with my daughter, not just in that moment, but all together. It can help me see and empathize and deal with her in a way that can change us both, really. So doing the SEL work, I'll be able to know my emotions and how I feel. And not only that, be able to build rapport with her in a way where I can tell how she's feeling. And I can even kind of guide her, right, to start feeling like me. And that's what SEL work can do. SEL work builds relationship with yourself first. It is about self first. That's what SEL is. So it's crazy to me. I know this is what this whole thing is about, but it's crazy to me that we just jumped right in and started with the students, right? And even as I said before, Castle is acknowledging that it really should start with the adults in the building, and schools are saying that even successful schools that have implemented SEL say they wish they have started with the adults first. And that's why adult SEL is becoming a thing finally, which is very exciting. But SEL can change your beingness. It can really change who you are and even your personality, how you react to things, how you perceive things, whereas self-care really does not do that. So self-care is nice, right? And self-care is thoughtful. But if we really want to address burnout, if we really want to address retention and school culture, we really need to do the work that is involved in SEL. So join me in this SEL self journey. Share, like, comment. I'm open to feedback too. Please give me feedback or anything that you would like to hear about. Join me over on Instagram at SEL Faculty to learn more and find out more. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining me, and I really appreciate the time that you give.